It's Nerd 30. So come one, come all to the nerdiest show of them all. The Omega level nerds are ready to talk nerdy to you. It is the Omega level nerds with you. It is Nerd 30. We have Volsker, JD Oliva, and myself, D Square. We are the Omega level nerds with you tonight. And why have we come together? Well, let's face it, it's been one of the best geek weeks, couple weeks, that we've seen. We've got Geek Spider-Man No Way From Home. Absolutely. Merry Christmas as we record this on Christmas Eve. Santa, no doubt, circling my house as we speak. And we've got the present of Spider-Man No Way Home. We also have The Matrix Resurrection, The Witcher, and we may even talk a little Hawkeye. So let's get right into it. So J.D. Oliva, best-selling author for Amazon. I asked you on this podcast, and I, again, thank you so much very graciously, because I know that you are a huge Spider-Man fan.
I love Spider-Man.
Yeah. And so let's hear from you first. Spider-Man No Way From Home. Just give us your initial thoughts, your first impression, your quick review. Spoilers, by the way, guys. It's been out a week, so
it's been out a week.
Yeah,
everybody knows.
Yeah,
I'll put the spoiler up, but yeah.
I love this movie. I liked it. I go into every movie now because I try not to get hyped for anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I find that getting hyped for things just sets you up for disappointment because it fails to live up to expectations that you set for yourself, right? And that's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you build things up in your head, they'll never live up to what you think they are, because you can't ever beat the unknown in your brain, because the unknown in your brain could be anything, right? And then when something is something, then it can't be anything. It is a thing. So for me, I just go, I'm looking forward to this movie. I think it's going to be pretty good. And if I could watch no trailers, I would probably do that too. But it's impossible to not watch trailers. It's impossible to watch it when you co-host a podcast, Superhero Speak, every week on finer podcatchers across this great platform. So I was excited for this movie. I did not think Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were going to be in this movie. I thought, nah, it's not going to happen. I thought it was a possibility, but I said, if I set myself up for this and it doesn't happen, then I'm going to be mad about something that might not happen. So why do that?
Let's look at Let There Be Carnage, you know?
Yes.
What has Sony done before?
Exactly. They have a terrible track record. So I said, you know what? No expectations. This should be a fun movie. It was way better than I was expecting, man. It blew away every expectation I had. It is the movie that I find to be watching this movie in particular is the closest thing to actually reading comics that I think any movie can get out. Because most times you take a comic book movie, right, and you try to bring the comic book concepts and principles into a movie diameter. This is the complete opposite, right? They took the constructs of a movie and brought in a comic. Okay, Peter Parker's in trouble. He needs a lawyer. Who do we go? Daredevil. Matt Murdock. Yeah. Of course that's who you do. That's an issue of Spider-Man. Which leads me to the next issue of, man, I have this problem. Everyone knows I have to fix this problem that needs magic. I'll go to Doctor Strange. And then the Sinister Six are after me. And then I'm going to meet my doppelgangers from a different universe. This is all one movie. Right? Mm-hmm. Where this is it's like reading a run. It's like reading a run on comics, where you get these various narrative threads that link this gigantic tapestry together. And I've never seen a movie, with the exception of Infinity War, that was able to connect the dots from this giant expansive continuity, where they used 20 years of Spider-Man movies to make this movie. It's not Spider-Man 3, it's Spider-Man 9.
Yeah.
So, and they delivered for me. They really delivered on all the expectations that I had. I've seen it 3 times now. I took my kid, I took my wife. I can't talk enough about how this movie made me feel. And as a writer, my number one concerns are character first and then emotion second. And I let plot and stuff like that, because that's that stuff's really not as important as people make it out to be. Like, you can have the most clinical plot paced perfectly in the world, and if it doesn't make you feel anything, you're going to forget about it, right? It's
Hmm.
character and it's emotion. And this movie, I was supremely invested in these characters, and emotionally, I came out just thrilled and happy to be a comic book fan. Infinity War, I left Infinity War like sad, like deflated. Even though you're sad because Aunt May has died, like there's all this potential for the future and the hope, and that's what Spider-Man really is. Like, much like Superman, Spider-Man's about hope. It's about wanting better. It's about, doing beyond what you think is capable of, and that is, again, it comes down to hope. And I think this movie just absolutely nails it, man. I talk a lot.
Okay, so the Spider-Man fan says this is the shit.
I loved it.
As shortly as I can put it. Volsker, what about you? What are your first impressions, thoughts?
Let me try to touch on a couple things, not to retread what JD said, but first of all, a little backstory. So I love Spider-Man. I'm not like this huge, super, nerdy Spider-Man fan. As you guys know, I'm the newest one in the comics compared to the three of us. But when I look at Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2 was the epitome to me of superhero movies. Like, that was the most well-constructed Spider-Man film. And I mean, even compared to the MCU, and I've told you this before, D, I love that fucking film. Like, amazing. This movie, I'm having a hard time. Like, what's first and what's second? Like, it's that crazy. Um, and I'm going to throw this out. I've never been a fan of Andrew Garfield. I was not a fan of his Peter Parker, was not a fan of his movies. This movie made me want to see a third one, which is nuts. Like, I was like, okay, if we
And
put
it's set
Andrew
up too, right?
Garfield,
Because it's the Amazing Spider-Man. I don't know if they knew they were going to do that, but
yeah,
you could totally have the Amazing Spider-Man 3, and we're like,
hmm
cool.
Not
yeah.
only could they do it, they should do it.
And there's fans, like, there's petitions and shit out there going crazy about this, and it made me look like, okay, if we have an MCU quality team behind an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man film, I think it could be pretty badass. And what do? They open up the multiverse. You can absolutely do it. And what are people going to say? Oh, we got different universe Spider-Mans now. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Um, but going into this film, I was hyped. I know the rumors of all three being in there, and going back to like what we just mentioned, JD, it is Sony. You had to hold out. Now Feige is still technically in charge because it's MCU, but they could have easily did a what is it? What's his face? They did with in WandaVision, Ralph Boner. It could have just been an absolute, and then just
Yeah.
right from the get go, we got Charlie Cox. I was like, you should have seen the theater. The theater lost their damn mind. Just as
Same.
soon as I saw that cane pop down, I was like, oh, shit got real. Like, and then how they did the Aunt May versus the Ben, like, this film, I just can't say enough. This film literally is the best in terms of this is what a Spider-Man story should be. This is how Peter Parker would act in these situations. Like, going with the Doctor Strange, he's like, I want better for them. They might try to kill me. I want better. I don't want them to die. Like, that is Peter Parker. None of the other, as much as I love Tobey Maguire, like, that was not their written character. And then when you look at what they did going to the end, giving that suit at the end is badass. I'm just going to say it. Like, that is straight comic book. This is Marvel Spider-Man. And a lot of the fanboys were complaining, and I'm not sure how you felt about this, JD, but Iron Man Jr., Iron Boy, like, they built this Tom Holland's Peter Parker, that he had to have somebody there to guide him. they cleaned that. Like, this is Spider-Man's all on his own. He's poor, he's friendly, like it's all about him, ground level, street level superhero, and I'm excited just to see what they end up doing from here. Like, I am hyped. I can't wait.
Yeah, there's a lot
So,
of. Oh, go ahead, Don. Sorry.
so with you saying that, I gotta tell you, they basically did a trilogy just to give you the origin of Spider-Man. How do you feel about that?
I'm absolutely fine. I thought if you look at all three of them together, I am absolutely happy.
Yeah, I'm good.
What?
They took me on a ride.
Okay, okay. That's what I thought. Is I was like, wow, we just got a 3-movie trilogy that basically just said, here's the origin of Spider-Man. Now, obviously, vastly different than what you experience in the comic books, but then he's got the new, more grounded suit, which I like because. So, JD, I know you said on Superhero Speak you were going to take me to task on my lukewarm response to this movie.
I was kidding.
I
Busting balls.
absolutely welcome you do so. Believe me.
So I think like you're an X-Men guy, right? Like that's
Abs-
that's
yep.
your that's your touchstone. Like you're
Yep.
super passionate about it. I'm Spider-Man. Like for me, it's always been about Spider-Man. My parents have this story about how I was 2 and my grandpa owned a bakery in the city of Chicago, and he was a really good baker, and they baked the Spider-Man cake for my birthday, and I wouldn't let them cut it. I had to cut around Spider-Man. We ate cake around Spider-Man because
It's
I
fucking
I couldn't
awesome.
I couldn't handle the sight of seeing Spider-Man cut. I
Yes.
don't remember this, but my dad has never let me live this down
True
for
passion.
38 years now. So I've had to hear about this. So for me, it's like I love this character, and for me, it hit me in all the right spots and what I think. Like, I don't need a checklist to go, yes, this is Spider-Man. No, this isn't Spider-Man. Because quite frankly,
Mm-hmm.
if you've read, you know, I'm a big enough nerd where I can say that I have read the entire run of Amazing Spider-Man, or the vast majority of it anyway. Digital comics are great for that. So I've seen the differences for Stan Lee, or Jerry Conway, Roger Stern, Todd McFarlane. All these guys, they're different. What they added to the character, and there's vast changes in the character every decade or so.
Mm-hmm.
The Stan Lee, Steve Ditko Peter Parker is significantly different than the Stan Lee, John Romita Peter Parker, which is way
Mm-hmm.
different than the one that Dave Michelinie and Mark Bagley were working on. It's just completely different than the one that JMS and John Romita Jr. were working on. Like, it's different, and it has to be different. Like, these characters work because they're recreated every 10 years or so. Right. So this movie felt different. And I think that's a strength because this Spider-Man was so different. When Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield show up, you get 3 different characters that are the same guy. And even with
Yeah.
the different suits that you can identify very easily, they feel different and they act different. They think different. And they made that a strength, not a weakness.
Yeah, they do. So for me to, I want to explain my lukewarm
Please.
reaction, and what JD is saying is, Superhero Speak came out with a poll, and in that poll, obviously I voted that, hey, it was a good movie, and I commented it was enjoyable. And you hear JD, you also hear Volsker talk about how great this movie is. So please don't let my response be perceived as lukewarm. It was a good movie. It's a better movie than 99% of other shit out there that I wouldn't even give the time of day. My
Would you go see it again?
biases, yes, yes, I would.
Okay.
My biases comes from I did not like how Spider-Man was shoehorned into the MCU. They said, "Oh, Civil War." Well, Spider-Man's a big part of that. We got to have Spider-Man in the Civil War movie. But he didn't play the same role that he did in the comic books. Now, that's my hang up. I'll admit
Mhm.
that. That's my hang up, that I still hold these to the standard of the original story. But nonetheless, Peter Parker / Spider-Man played a very big role in the Civil War comic storyline because he revealed, I am Peter Parker. And obviously that's, when you look at Civil War, Tony basically picked this kid for a fight, and it doesn't make quite sense to me. Oh, this kid, he's going to fight for us. Okay, nonetheless, Spider-Man's in the MCU. Then they do the Venom shit. Venom without Spider-Man doesn't work.
Oh,
I
that doesn't
love
work.
Venom.
No.
I love Venom. You want to know why I love Venom? Because I don't hate Spider-Man, but you're talking about somebody that was born in the year 1980. So Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, those are all like mainstream, continually in-your-face superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like stuff that's popular. So I like Venom because he can sneak up on Spider-Man without tripping his spider senses, blah, blah, blah. And he's black, looks cool. So Spider-Man or Venom without Spider-Man doesn't work for me. So I feel the whole Venom movies are shoehorned. So the whole shoehorned Spider-Man thing does not set well with me. So I will admit that I took that negative biases and went into this movie.
How do you feel about a Morpheus without Spider-Man? That's the real question.
Fuck that movie.
It
Now,
looks
to
terrible.
be fair, though, if you do watch the trailer, it says Spider-Man's missing. So Spider-Man at least lived in that universe.
There is a Spider-Man in that universe. I don't know what No, they're in the MCU because they have the Vulture.
Right, exactly.
This could be confusing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But fuck the whole Morbius thing. I'm sorry, I'm not in it.
I'm with you.
I'm just scared he's going to ruin it like the Joker.
I will say
you can't ruin Morbius. Like,
I know, why is Jared Leto cursed to just be like the we don't give a fuck character actor of our century? Anyway, so I took that negative biases into this movie because I don't like the shoehorning of Spider-Man. I don't like he's got the Iron Man spider suit. Spider-Man to me is a kid that is struggling, that to make his own suit. He's not rich. So problems that don't normally bother a superhero are big fucking things to Spider-Man. Oh, absolutely. And by the way, he's got all this. Somehow this kid has this robust villain gallery, and we love it, right? We love all of them. Doc Ock, Goblin, okay. But let me tell you, okay? What did I tell you, Volsker? What would make me walk the fuck out of this movie is if they kept Willem Dafoe under that goddamn mask. They didn't. And in doing so, we got some true comic accurate fucking conversations between Peter Parker and the Green Goblin.
Oh, Dafoe fucking killed that. I think.
And so at that point, I'm like, nuts. You got me, motherfuckers. You got me. You got me, you sons of bitches. You got me. It makes me forgive the plot hole of Electro not really knowing that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Okay, whatever. And the fact that Venom should have pulled in per the spell. Okay. But nonetheless. So that whole Willem Dafoe fucking Green Goblin.
He
Peter
did pull
Parker
in from the spell.
Well, the Tom Hardy version. We should have got a Topher Grace version, but I'll let it go.
Point.
Because I got to tell you, I'm really fucking impressed by that Willem Dafoe Green Goblin Peter Parker dialogue. That is fucking... That's it. That's fucking so comic accurate. I couldn't... So, yes, JD, I gave a lukewarm response, but that really was just to hide the fact that I'm sitting there watching those two dialogue, and I'm like, this is fucking great.
So I get what you're saying. You're a fan of the traditionalist take on Spider-Man.
Yes,
but
correct.
I will also say that version of Spider-Man has not existed since 1982. I
get it. And I experienced the same shit with the X-Men. Like, I want to have the X-Men in the X-Mansion with Professor S being like this ultra good guy. But honestly, they haven't been in the X-Mansion in like 10 fucking years. Professor X has been a piece of shit for like 20 years. So you're right. I do need to take myself out of my 10, 11-year-old head and say, okay, this is what I expect and this is what it is.
But it has to be done right.
It does.
That's
and the whole thing. Willem Dafoe, they broke the mask. It was just, that was masterful. So that made me love this movie. It did.
I think I said this in Superhero Speak, and I'll say it again here. What I really appreciate about these movies is because when these came out, everyone's like, oh, who's going to be this version of Green Goblin? Who's going to be this version of Mary Jane? And it turned out you didn't need that, right? Because we had the right Green Goblin the whole time. And I love that no matter what universe, Spider-Man's ultimate enemy is the Green Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it was perfect. I mean, like, and well, this movie in a lot of ways, what I liked is it kind of fixes a lot of the errors and it breathes new life into those old movies, right? It gives them all
Absolutely.
like a second. It gives them all like a second life. Like Willem Dafoe is the perfect choice to play the Green Goblin. Why they put him under that mask, nobody has any good reason. Nobody knows. Willem Dafoe doesn't even know. But then he gets his second crack, and they give him, a green and purple hoodie, and just let him do the weird thing with his face, and it's like, Goblin, we got it.
You know what's
Right.
funny about that
We got it.
is there was an interview. Raimi didn't want to have him in that mask. They
No, it was
actually,
all Sony.
yeah, and Sony was like, we don't want the kids scared. Like he
Mhm.
looked freaky as shit with like this prosthetic, like rubber suit and shit. Like, yeah,
Which it turns out they didn't even need that. All you needed was Willem Dafoe to just be weird. Go be
yes.
Willem
Yeah.
Dafoe for 20 minutes, and people are
I
gonna
mean,
love it. And it was perfect.
I was a little disappointed his face didn't turn green, but a little. But a little. It still was great.
It was.
Um,
I get it. I thought the same thing too. I wondered if we are gonna get a more Goblin accurate mask, but that
right.
would have been. I think plot wise, it would have been hard to do that, but it worked. And what I liked about this is now we've set up an MCU version of the Hobgoblin.
Yes. Yes.
Because
With
the Hobgoblin, the original Hobgoblin, Roderick Kingsley, he finds Norman Osborn's weapons cache and decides on his own to make himself a goblin. Well, Norman went back, but we didn't see his stuff go back.
his right.
So his
His
stuff is
glider,
all
pumpkin
still there.
bombs. Yes. 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 Yes.
And
So
Yes.
there's been rumors that, with Ned potentially in this film, it didn't happen, but now he doesn't remember who Peter is. There's still room for him to end up being a
and they would,
Hobgoblin.
well, and that's the interesting thing about the Ned Leeds character is he took the fall as the Hobgoblin. He was never supposed to be the Hobgoblin, and then he was. Then they went back and said, "No, Ned was never the Hobgoblin." So it is there, and they did lean. They did maybe foreshadow a bit when Peter talks about Harry dying in his
Yeah.
arms. So maybe that's what that is. And the Hobgoblin, of course, let's be comic nerds now. In the original Inferno, the Hobgoblin becomes magic, right?
Yep. Yep.
He
Yep. Yep.
becomes an actual demon. So maybe we set that up with Ned being able to do some magic, right? Like there's a lot of doors that aren't necessarily open, but at least teased to make you
Mhm.
go, maybe. So I mean, this is there's
Yeah.
some cool stuff going on in this. Like I don't know. I left this movie thinking there's a million things we could do from here.
And I'm not gonna lie,
There
like I
is.
was a big fan for the first film, like Zendaya or however you say her name at first. I think
She's
I
good.
warmed up a lot to her in
Yeah.
this movie. Like I was like, okay, you know what? I'll take her as MJ. Like she fits the role. She fits this type of
This version,
Peter.
yeah. She's they give her a lot more to do in this
Yeah.
movie. Like as the movies have gone on, she's been asked to do more. And I think she really showed her talent. I was underwhelmed with her in Dune because she's not really in it very much. Like she just kind of shows up and then she's gone. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I think
Whole
the
lot of nothing.
sequels are supposed to be like
I think
her as the main character, isn't
I
it?
I don't know. I'm not a Dune head, so I couldn't tell you. But it seems like she plays a bigger role. I would assume you get Zendaya, you're gonna use her.
She will. She'll play a
Yeah.
bigger role in this second movie for sure.
So I liked her. I thought she's really good, and I think that you talk about Civil War. Like this gave us like what did like a Spider-Man fan here? Civil War leads into the most divisive, not good Spider-Man story of all time. Leads into One More Day. They did
I
One
just
More
read
Day.
that.
Yeah, it's trash. It's absolute trash. It makes no sense. They just reconciled it this year. Like they just made sense of it 14 years after the fact
Yeah, yeah,
this year.
yeah.
With one
Yeah.
panel, you go, oh, okay,
Yeah.
now Mephisto makes sense with one
Yeah.
panel. 14 years. Like this movie did it better.
Yep.
They did it better, and it ends in a better place. Like I remember After One Day ends with this. They go like, "Oh, brand new day, everyone's happy," and you're like, "Oh, it feels like your heart's been ripped out." This ends, your heart's ripped out, but you do feel like there's something for the future. You do feel hopeful. Like I think it's more. I'll be honest, better storytellers.
Yeah.
You know,
You
so
do. You
yeah.
feel hopeful because again, obviously this is a different origin for Spider-Man where Aunt May plays the part of Ben, Uncle Ben. But you strip away the Tony Stark shit. He made his own suit. He's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And we could even look forward to them like reintroducing these villains that obviously had a big part in this movie, but these were those villains from a different universe. We could still be introduced to them in this universe. So I thought it is a good place to ground Spider-Man more. And we can get that kid, that Peter Parker, who's got real life problems to deal with, all the while dealing with these villains that challenge him. So I did think that was good.
And they completely introduced a way to get the black suit Spider-Man and a real Venom now.
They did. So one of my major complaints about Venom in general was like the whole Venom without Spider-Man doesn't work for me, you know. And
it doesn't make sense.
You know, I am a traditionalist. But so now the only question is, how the fuck does the symbiote get from Mexico to New York? But hey, I'm sure it'll happen. These are comic book movies, so
it's gonna crawl.
Further stretches have been made for sure.
You know, my number one complaint is though about this. So when you look at the original trilogy with Raimi, and then I don't even know who the hell the director was, but the Andrew Garfield,
Mark Webb.
Every film, yes, that okay. So oddly enough, yeah, Mark Webb. So those first 5 films, whether they were good or trash, all had a distinct, fantastic web slinging scene. None of the Homecoming or any of the Tom Hollands has had any memorable web slinging. That, like, even at the end when he's in that suit, he just looked like he was flailing around. Like, they didn't give us any iconic, like, here is Spider-Man just web slinging through New York. That is my biggest gripe.
Yeah, I get that. I thought the last scene with them doing it in the snow looked pretty cool, but I also like how they steered into when they do the scene with all 3 of them land, and they all land in their traditional poses. They were moving like that particular version of Spider-Man moved. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I get your criticism. I can understand that.
That scene was like, I wanted to stand up and cheer when they just all pulled their mask down and just dove off. Like,
It's cool. It's very, very cool.
Let me ask you though. So I was convinced that there was going to be no Andrew Garfield, no Tobey Maguire.
Me too.
It happened. And I was convinced. The actors were like, "This isn't fucking happening." We
came
don't
out
know
of
what
the
talking
blue.
about.
Like, I didn't expect it. They were like, I was like, wait a sec. As soon as he
So-
started flailing,
The eyes. I
yeah,
started
yeah.
clapping.
So I will give this movie kudos. I don't know if it's the movie, but I will give kudos that I was really convinced that we weren't going to see these other Spider-Man.
I agree. I don't think this stuff could have been as under wraps in non-COVID times. Like,
Yeah.
I think they actually utilized the pandemic to their best bet because, like, sets are a lot more closed than they used to be. I'm going to assume they also filmed this movie with the Jon Favreau video walls because, you know, he's there, which is technology he's pretty much pioneered. So I'm going to, because it's way easier to make a movie now with that stuff. So I'm going to assume that was used because Willem Dafoe not only was in the movie, he's the villain. Like, he's the main villain, and we didn't even know for a fact he was going to be in it because all we saw was the masked goblin, and they could easily have just given us that, and he died, right, and never shown us Willem Dafoe instead of giving us him as the villain. So the fact that they kept so much of this under wraps, like loose, like here and there stuff broke out, but not to the extent that that probably would have happened 2 years ago.
But
would agree.
let me say this though. This movie debunks the whole like, oh, you spoiled the movie. Because how much of this movie was actually spoiled? A lot. And we still fucking went. Yeah. We still went, and we still were like, this is the shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't say that on Twitter, but I was being coy and looking to create controversy. But I love the Doc Ock. The good Doc Ock is great.
What a great ending where they actually they save him, right? They redeem him. They redeem Doc Ock, who was a tragic character. What a great moment.
Yeah. The only one of the villains that didn't really make sense was Electro. I still don't get the whole How does he go from that dorky guy to in this universe? But with that said,
I can tell you why.
I really like the fact that you've got Electro and he gets a hold of an arc reactor.
Genius. That was so genius.
Fucking cool. That was cool.
The answer
go
is
ahead.
that's the only way Jamie Foxx comes back for the movie.
right. Yeah, and that's okay. We can suspend disbelief. I liked how I'm not sure if you guys remember this, but remember when we discovered like that scene with the lizard and he gets punched? And like, oh no, that didn't happen. But no, we see that no, he got fucking rocked. But let's talk about Andrew Garfield. So holy fuck, does that guy make me feel emotions?
He was so good. He was so good. When he catches MJ and then he breaks down, like you just feel it. Like it just shows you how underutilized he was in his movies. Like this is a kind of a comeback movie for him. Like give this guy all the movies. Like I want to see him in all these movies just crying and I'll just feel for him every time.
Yeah.
He's
he's
good.
Geez, that guy's a good actor.
There's rumors that how well this went that they possibly could show up in Multiverse of Madness now because they went back and they started doing reshoots now after how well this went.
Good. You use
There's
them.
a lot of shit you can show in that movie, so absolutely.
I'm gonna start a rumor that I'm hoping I do this on superhero speak all the time. It never works. I'm hoping maybe it works now. I think that Marvel should and will make a Kraven movie with Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man because we see Kraven's outline in the sky as the villains who are breaking through. 3 times I started studying a little closer on that third time. I was like, I'm gonna see what I can spot, and I'm just staring at the sky, looking, and I clearly saw Kraven, the outline of Kraven. So I want to see.
Do we think that moment? Big question. Mm-hmm. Do we think that moment coincides with Kang not knowing what the fuck's gonna happen in Wanda when it was like, hey, we've crossed the threshold. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Do we think that coincides?
I never even thought of that. So you just said that. It makes perfect sense.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, is this the fucking catalyst to why Kang doesn't know what the fuck's going on now? I don't know. We'll have to see that explained. But
because Spider-Man broke the universe. I would love that. I would love if that is the reason that this whole. But it's also very Spider-Man, right? And also because we're getting a new Tom Holland trilogy, and I don't think they're just going to let it be off in its own little corner. It's going to have some type of major MCU implications.
After this, they have to.
Because it turns out people go see Spider-Man movies, and they make a lot of money. So,
fuck too.
And let's be real, the new wave this year of MCU movies has not grabbed people the way the old ones have.
Agreed.
It just they're not bad, but I mean, there just hasn't been the cultural touchstones that the first ones were, that the original wave were. Like, you're not getting the outpouring of love for, the Eternals that you got for Thor, the original Thor.
Right.
Or, Iron. Like, so you need Spider-Man. Like, you can introduce all these other guys and do, because Marvel does this all the time. We got these new things. This is the new thing, the new guy. And it's like, oh, but we also have Spider-Man here to make sure it sells a lot.
Yeah.
Right. You're gonna need him, especially if you're gonna do the delayed gratification thing on the X-Men.
Oh, don't even get me started there.
It's time, by the way, for that. It's time.
It is time. Okay, so let's rewind just a little bit. So early scene in the movie, Peter Parker is potentially in some legal trouble, so he employs a lawyer, Volsker.
Oh yeah.
And that that lawyer is none other than Charlie Cox Daredevil. Paired with the fact that if you're paying attention to the Hawkeye show, Vincent D'Onofrio is clearly Kingpin. How are you liking that, Volsker? I know you were one of the people, because I don't watch the Netflix stuff. I'm not a street-level hero guy. But I know you and many others were pining very hard for the Kingpin, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage. So how'd you like that? If you watch any
of them, I go watch the Daredevil series, and you'll see why people wanted these two back.
The first 2 seasons of Daredevil is some of the best stuff Marvel has done. It's
Yeah.
really that good.
When I saw that Kane, man, I was just like, I was sitting there holding, well, because Robin went with me, and I'm sitting there like my feet going. I wanted to just stand up and scream. Like, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And
Got a lot of
it's
pop for
funny
sure.
because because Feige came out, which he doesn't usually do, just a couple days prior, saying he will be our MCU Daredevil if Daredevil is brought in. Lo and behold, guess what? It was already filmed.
And of course, in the Hawkeye series is where we see the Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio version of him,
Do you
particularly in
think?
the past 2 episodes.
Do you think Feige had to come forward with it because it turned? Because remember we talked about it in our show when that picture got leaked that I thought was a Photoshop. Shows what an idiot I am. Do you think he had to say something because because that's a big surprise? Like people speculated, but people speculate all the time on these Marvel things, right? Do you think they had to say something? Because they didn't have to say anything, but he chose to. It's a
Yeah,
very
he didn't.
non-Feige like move.
Exactly. I don't know, like, or maybe even like saying that to maybe kind of throw people off
Maybe,
of a trail that was getting too close.
maybe I
Like,
could see that.
but yeah, that's very unlike him. He didn't need to say that. Like, people were hyped. I mean, like, for this film alone, they said, what, as of tomorrow, it's expected to break 1 billion already
Wow.
in a week.
People are getting tired of superhero movies. That's what I
Right.
read.
Yeah,
That's
I
what I
guess
read
that
every few months.
debunks that theory. I
People
mean,
like good superhero movies.
good. Yeah, right. Exactly. Good superhero movies. People are going to be there. I think it's brilliant to bring those Netflix characters into the MCU, particularly because I know myself, and I know above all, and whether this means I'm somewhere on the spectrum or not, who knows? I think we all are. But nonetheless, I like familiar. And we've already got 2 very important Marvel characters established. No reason to move past them because they
They
both
weren't
do an
just
excellent job.
established; they were established fucking well.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
very
Like,
much.
they could, because if you look at some of D'Onofrio's tweets, he basically alluded that this is the same Kingpin, but don't be a continuitist because some things won't match up perfectly with the MCU and the shows, but they are technically the same
Well,
characters,
and
which that's
that's
going
the
to be
legacy of
interesting.
comic books. Comic
Yeah,
books don't match up with each
Right.
other.
Never. If you try to line everything up, you will go crazy.
You
Like
will
it
go
doesn't work.
fucking crazy.
It
Absolutely.
doesn't it doesn't make sense. It never makes
Um,
sense. It makes enough sense. Right?
right.
The continuity salad bar. Take what you want, leave the rest.
yep,
But
absolutely.
I know we'll get into Hawkeye in a little bit, but if you thought like just seeing how he was in that finale, he is fucking wicked in Daredevil. Like, I
Accurate.
remember the first scene where he just beat that dude's head in a car, and I'm like, oh, we're going here, Netflix. Here we're
Vincent D'Onofrio is so understated in most of his Kingpin performances. Like
yeah
he's not like bold and brash. He's a little like um reserved in a lot of what he does. And then he
Yeah.
explodes in this fire of like
yeah.
horrific fury that's horrifying. I legitimately think that Kingpin has been the best MCU villain. I just as far as performance because I like Josh Brolin as Thanos, but he's really just a cartoon character. It's good, but it's still a cartoon character, right? This is a living, breathing person with emotions who's damaged, and you see it. And the first 2 seasons specifically of Kingpin Daredevil, that rivalry, it's so good. It's so well
Yeah.
done. And like a lot of people have forgotten about it because I think Marvel's kind of moved on. And I'm very happy that we're bringing it back a little bit. I don't know if Disney's ever going to show those shows because I don't think they're on Netflix anymore, are they?
Oh, they are.
Yeah, they
That's
Oh,
are.
what I
they're on
thought was
Netflix. Never mind.
funny is because literally about a week ago I can't remember, I was watching something and they kept advertising Daredevil. I'm like, why the fuck are they the show's been off for 3 years. Like, what's going on? And then I watched it. I was like, makes sense. They're trying to get up on that hype now.
That does
Mhm.
make a lot of sense, actually.
Yep.
Good for them. Good for them, because it's a good show. It's not all of the MCU Netflix stuff was good, but Daredevil was.
Yeah.
Daredevil
The
was
others
good.
that weren't good were entertaining, but Daredevil was just,
It's the crown jewel
yeah.
for sure. I like the 2 seasons of Luke
Mhm.
Cage. Luke Cage ends on a huge cliffhanger, so hopefully we get some follow up on that. Iron Fist sucks. The Defenders was Jessica Jones. First season Jessica Jones is pretty good. Second season
Yeah.
I didn't like as much, but yeah, there's some good and there's some bad. But Daredevil, and Daredevil was good.
So for the Spider-Man No Way From Home, so basically what we've learned is that these Spider-Man movies are basically a 3-movie origin story for Spider-Man.
Sure, sure.
Because at
We
the end of No Way Home, they do the whole, you know what? Everyone forgets that I'm Spider-Man, even Doctor Strange himself. We
ironically enough, you call it.
see.
We
Go
never
ahead.
see the spider. We never see the spider bite him. Tom Holland.
That's
We never
correct.
see it.
That is
We know.
correct.
We know there is an Uncle Ben. We don't know what happened
But
to
we don't
him.
know. Right. Right.
So
Exactly.
it's so funny that this is a three because I never thought about that, but you're right. This is kind of a 3 movie origin story, but we never see the 2 biggest moments of the origin.
Right.
I wonder if that's coming
Right.
in that new cartoon that they're doing, because they're doing a prequel cartoon that's freshman year.
Could be. It's a little lame, but hopefully we see more details around that and whatever the next trilogy is going to be. Because clearly this sets up a cleaning of the slate, as you will, for Spider-Man. And so we're down to, we don't have the Tony Stark nanobot suit. We've got a suit that he made. No one knows who he is. And we may even be potentially introduced to a new rogue gallery, right? This version of Green Goblin, Doc Ock, and all that.
It's time for the clones. It's time to bust out the clones.
Time to
And
bust out
let's
the
be
clone.
honest, too, they also basically alluded to Miles coming at some point.
Miles will. They'll get a
Yes,
Miles
yes.
somewhere.
With
There is a Miles somewhere.
There's got to be a black Spider-Man somewhere. Yep, absolutely.
Oh, we already got his uncle, which is technically the Prowler.
Yes,
We
yes,
did
yes,
get
yes,
that.
yes. We did. So yes, JD, I may have given this a lukewarm reception there on Twitter, but I absolutely recognize what is great about this movie. We made all Spider-Man movies relevant.
Mhm.
We got a great Tobey. We haven't even talked about Tobey Maguire, who I thought was great in this movie. I loved the whole meta of, oh, hey, you don't need a web slinger. Your shit just comes right out.
How
I
does
love
that work?
I love that
I
they
love
addressed that.
I love that they were all freaked out by it. I love
Right.
that it disgusted them. That was such a great
Yes,
turn.
exactly. But yeah, we get, so obviously Tobey Maguire's like the old man Spider-Man. And again, we got really most of our emotion from Andrew Garfield, which was cool. And obviously Tom Holland is Tom Holland, and they all had really good chemistry together. Which I wonder if they had to shoot that before they let that happen. Like, let's shoot this, let's see what happens. Oh shit, this works.
I think they got lucky, to be honest with you, because you never know
Yeah,
who you're going to have chemistry with, and they were
yeah.
incredible together.
So yes, again, JD, my reception may have been lukewarm, but I do recognize all the good stuff.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about art, though, is art affects people in different ways, right? Like
Absolutely.
there's no right or wrong way to interpret how something makes you feel, right? And if you
Mhm.
felt it was good, fine, passable, that's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of movies that I'm like that people go crazy for. Then I'm like, it's okay,
Yeah.
like it's perfectly fine. Like
And
I was joking about that, but yeah,
no, I get it. And that's the thing. Like, before I had seen this movie, I had read things like, "Oh, I was in the theater and this got as much pop as Captain America wielding Mjolnir or saying Avengers Assemble." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I try not to read those things because again, it creates these biases where you're just like it
Right.
immediately puts you on the defensive, and
Agreed.
I just hate listening to anybody else's thoughts when it comes to these things, especially like reading. Like when you're reading stuff, like that's why I don't like reading reviews. I don't like hearing things before I've seen the movie. Like I try to go in just as
For
tabula
sure.
rasa as possible because
Yeah.
it turns you like it gives you like these preconceived notions that can be dramatically unfair. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. As I search for a bottle opener. Anyway, oh, here we go. But there were some cool moments. The Andrew Garfield, the Tobey Maguire reveals were cool. They weren't quite Avengers Assemble for me, but I get it. The
For
masterful
Spider-Man fans,
dialogue,
that definitely was.
Yeah,
and
it
I
was
get
for
that. I get
Mhm.
that. I absolutely get that. The masterful dialogue between Green Goblin and the Spider-Man was awesome. So I can definitely upgrade my lukewarm response from enjoyable to yeah, no, this is cool. This is great. This is ultra comic booky, which I love, and I gotta give it to him making the other Spider-Man films relevant. Bravo. So great job. And at the end of it, we can have our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and I dig that. I dig it.
What's crazy
Also,
too, don't
love
forget,
the
like even
Charlie
at the
Cox
very
Daredevil.
oh yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say at the very end too, we see now how this plays into Multiverse of Madness. Like
What is
Yes.
legit. Like he's just you even in the trailer, like you see Doctor
Yeah.
Strange just like he's just like fucking beat. Like what the hell did I do? Like this is nuts.
8-Bit Ray, I know you hate Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but I really can't wait till I see your response to the end credit scenes to this movie. Like,
I think he's going to love that because that
yes.
trailer sequence just looked awesome. I Sam Raimi, ironically enough, I think bringing in and they did a good job. Scott Derrickson did the first Doctor Strange. I think bringing in horror directors to make these Doctor Strange movies is a great call. Uh, we're fighting the Lovecraftian monsters in the city in New York City.
Yeah.
I'm on board, man. Sold.
Yeah.
We're gonna get our Bruce Campbell Mysterio.
Oh,
We're gonna
you
get
will.
Bruce Campbell. I don't know about his Mysterio. We're gonna get Bruce
Yeah.
Campbell.
Yeah. For sure. All right. So, yes, Spider-Man No Way From Home. If you're one of the minority people that have not seen it, go see it. You will
Yes.
enjoy it. And even if you're like me, who's like, this is shoehorned Spider-Man, Tony Hawk suit, bullshit, go see it. Okay? Go see it. You'll enjoy it. All right. Not much else can be said about that. So let's move on to another movie that at least Volsker and I have watched recently. Of course, Volsker is a huge Matrix fan, and Matrix Resurrection was released in the theater as well as on HBO Max.
Mm-hmm.
Volsker, you're the Matrix fan. You played the game. You know all the lore. How now, brown cow? Did you find the Matrix Resurrections?
So I was hyped for this movie, but I was a little scared because let's face it, like coming in, what was I to expect? You mentioned the video game. For those that aren't too familiar, they did an MMO that took place after the third film, and they basically made it as a continuity, like continuation. Yeah, he just disappeared. Um, in like major characters, like Morpheus was killed, and then they were spitting like, oh, Neo's alive, but you have to restructure his code. If you do that, though, Smith will come back, and then they shut the game down, and then lo and behold, they announced this movie. So I'm like, all right, that's. I was nervous. Ultimately, I like the film. I do not love it.
Mm.
Um, some of my few key points is at the first 25 minutes of the film,
Mhm.
it makes it like think that they're breaking the fourth wall, making a joke out of what the Matrix even is, which was really weird. But then when you start to find out why, it's like, oh, okay, so how are they alive? Oh, the machines wanted to basically restructure his body. Then I'm assuming with the analyst we find out, which is what's his face,
Doogie Howser,
Doogie
Neil Patrick
Howser.
Harris.
He basically replaced the architect in rebuilding it in his vision, but he needed a more
Because
and
he
like
knows
a more
humans.
yeah, and he needed a more powerful battery who could keep things going in his vision. And well, how do we do that? I basically get the remains of Neo, have it restructured by the robots to bring him back alive, plug him back in, and basically wipe his memories clean. And he is basically, in turn, running the new Matrix per se, which we find out he's back as Thomas Anderson. He's a video game director who's known for making the Matrix video games, but you start seeing like what do they call them? His nodules. Basically, his
Modals.
cutscenes in the games are his memories that he can't make out from the original trilogy.
Interesting.
Which
Right.
are, and when that started to break, I was like, oh, okay. And then what's a big question? Why is Morpheus replaced? What's going on? Where is the original?
Yeah.
Well, we find out that they made at least part of the MMO canon because Morpheus was murdered in a new war, and this Morpheus is actually memories combined of Smith and the original Morpheus in the eyes of Neo when he was that game director and not himself. And during this 60-year pass,
Are y'all following this? Okay,
No,
I
I'm
just want to
it's a
check.
completely
lot.
lost.
And in this 60-year pass, robots, the programs from the Matrix, can now come into the human world
Yeah. This shit.
as like a pixelated kind of weird. So it's a lot. Like it is definitely a lot. Um, it definitely brings it's yeah. It it brings a lot of the Matrix. It really gives us an opportunity for a new trilogy. People were calling it's too meta. Well, I
Oh,
kind of like
that's always been the Matrix, though. So
right.
Right.
that
Um, it's basically like they find this new program Matrix 2.0 is based honestly kind of like our society now. They can't unplug. They rely on games. They rely on technology. They want to be led instead of leading themselves. And
immortal
that's
words of the Buggles. We can't rewind. We've gone too far.
Right. Yeah,
um
no, this movie has a pretty crazy premise. So
it's a
For
we
lot.
a
catch up
for a
with
Matrix
Neo,
movie. For a
and he's
Matrix
a
movie.
lead developer for a video game that he created that is based off of the Matrix. Like one of the first scenes you see is in his office. There's like action figures and shit, but basically from the original Matrix trilogy.
Code coming down
Now,
his
what has
computer.
happened? What had happened is the new architect,
The
the
analyst.
analyst, played by Neil Patrick Harris, Doogie Howser. He knows humans, and what he figured out was that so they basically resurrect Neo and Trinity, and then they throw him back in the Matrix. And what they discover is this Matrix does not work unless Neo and Trinity are present for some reason.
They just can't
Neo
be
is a
too
video
close.
game programmer who came up with the Matrix video game, which obviously is based off true events, but the Matrix analysts have basically throwing it in the faces of the people in the Matrix by making it trivial. Trinity's off with her family.
Tiffany.
So Zion doesn't exist. It's now Io, where the humans and the machines, because of Trinity and Neo's sacrifice, the humans and the machines, or at least a faction of the humans or a faction of the machines and humans, work together and created this new city called Io, where they're able to have a fake sky and they can grow plants. In Niobe, right? Jada Pinkett Smith from the first trilogy is now the general. She's an old lady, and they work together with the machines. But this group of people from Io, this, like they had in the original, where they had these captains of these various ships. One of these captains decides that they're going to get Neo out of the Matrix again, because they resurrected Neo and Trinity only to put him in the Matrix again. Because for whatever reason, if they exist, everything works correctly. So without much to do, they rescue Neo. He's back out. But he's all about, I want to go get Trinity. Oh, I know Kung Fu again.
It's part romance.
I don't get this fucking movie. Because you told me, okay, resources got scared, the machines started fighting each other, and somehow through that, some of the machines came to the human side. But that's it. Oh, and that caused them to upgrade the Matrix, so the Oracle's done, and all that shit's done. It's a new Matrix. I don't know, man. I'm not fucking smart enough for this shit. I guess that's what I come down to, man.
Because Bugs even said the humans are dying out. Because Bugs even mentions that they're not getting people out anymore. Niobe is taking it too too conservative, and they're all about who's there now, not trying to get people back out. And that kind of was what spawned on it. Like, let's get Neo, let's get the One, and let's start saving people again. So that is kind of what I took a lot of that.
Right. And so they get Neo out. They eventually get Trinity out, which doesn't really make sense, but whatever. Agent Smith is back, but it's not Hugo Weaving. It's someone doing a bad impression of Hugo Weaving. And then it turns out that Neo is not the One. He's one half of the One. The other half is Trinity. So when it comes to revealing their special powers, yes, Neo has the almighty push, for you Naruto fans, but Trinity's the one that can fly for some fucking reason. I don't know, man.
Well,
I don't know.
At the end, they were both flying at the end, but that's where some of the comedy came in, where they were like, "Can you fly still, Neo?" And he's like, "No, I can't. Like, it ain't happening." I took it looking at what the Wachowskis went through, the Wachowski sisters now, which
Lana
I think
and Lily.
Lana's the one who did this.
Lana
Lily was
stayed.
not
Lily's,
the one.
yep, she's done.
If you think about, because they were very, very like mythology driven in a lot of their stuff, and a lot of going back, a lot of it went to like their internal battles. Because we know they were originally the Wachowski brothers, and then
right?
Wachowski
sisters, right?
If you look into like this form of Neo, he's not comfortable in his body. He doesn't have all of his One powers, and they kind of poke fun at that because you get these expectations like, Neo, we need you to fly us out of here. That ain't happening. I still know Kung Fu, but he wasn't as good. Like Agent Smith, let's be honest, beat the shit out of him. He couldn't stand a chance against this Smith. And if you think about that, it kind of is like these expectations from people and trying to live in a body you don't feel comfortable in. And then when we get to the end, we see he's happy, like he's content now that he has Trinity, and he's his true self again. Because at that point, they're both swirling, holding hands, and flying around like Superman.
Oh, like so fucking stupid.
But I liked it. I don't love it.
You liked it, but you don't like, because you're a big Matrix guy, right? You
Choreography
all
was
the
so
source shit.
dry.
Yeah.
Like he looked like Keanu Reeves looked old. Let's go to John Wick. We know he can move. Like he can kick ass in films. It did not look like the traditional kung fu from the originals.
Yeah.
Like it was slow, nothing big other than his push. Like none of the scenes were iconic when it came to the fights. Nothing.
Yeah, and that's really to me what the big misstep is, because when you have the original Matrix come out, it changes the film industry to this day.
Yeah.
What did they do revolutionary in this movie? Nothing.
Nope.
I enjoyed Neil Patrick Harris.
I'll say I like Bugs. I thought she was. I want to see more of her.
Yeah, Bugs was cool. Neil Patrick Harris was cool. But they explained nothing as far as the internal war between the machines. You told me the machines had a war between themselves because of scarce resources. And that's why the humans have some of the machines as allies. But that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And the security around the bodies that are producing the electricity for the machines to live seems to be very lax. They went in, they got Neo. They talked about, hey, that was our one shot. We're never going to be able to get in there again. Oh, look, they got in there again and they got Trinity. So yeah, I thought it was very convoluted, to be completely honest with you. Cool. Neo's got the long hair when he's in the Matrix, bald hair when he's out. Trinity's the same way. But yeah, it was just another Star Wars Force Awakened. It really was.
Yeah.
Like, it followed the same goddamn formula of, let's establish the old trilogy, let's insert it into this new trilogy or whatever the fuck it's going to be, and here we go. We're back off and running. And the most egregious error that this movie makes is that it ends with the same motherfucking song that the first Matrix ended with, but except for it being Rage Against the Machine, which I love. I love Rage Against the Machine. Love it. Love that band. Anyway, this was done. I couldn't tell you who did the song, but they did the same song, but with another band / person singing
It was
"Wake Up."
very bad cover. Cover. It was
So
not
you
good.
couldn't even give me that, you motherfuckers. The movie's very meta, but yeah, don't. Is this a revival of the series? Does this pique our interest like that original Matrix did? Does this change the film industry like the original Matrix did? It doesn't. It's very flat. I'm sorry to tell you. I am very sorry to tell you.
Brass Against is the name of the band that covers Wake Up, though.
Okay. Brass Against. So
that's right. It's like half orchestra.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, this is not sent off all these wonderful thoughts that the original movie did.
If
very
they do
dry,
a trilogy,
very toast.
I will like it more, but it's
Like, I get it. Trinity's obviously the badass here. And so I get that. You know, me too, woman power, I'm all about it. But
I mean, she was badass in the original trilogy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just like the couple of the characters in this movie are like, Trinity, you're the whole reason I am who I am, because I saw you were badass, so I'm going to be like that. All about it. But
yeah. It really seemed weird when she started getting the one powers. I agree. But if they do a trilogy and explain, because we don't know technically what happened with the robots rebuilding them and bring them back to
No,
life.
we
Was there
don't. We
something
don't know
like
anything about that at all. This whole fucking machine civil war going on, and they spent no time on it other than to say, yep, resources were scarce, so the machines started fighting each other.
yeah, and was it most of us left, some stayed? Because it was like the war was like right on top of Zion. Like that's what you just
Yeah.
see a glimpse.
And even the Niobe thing, the Jada Pinkett Smith thing, it makes no sense for you to say, oh, this was 60 years after the original Matrix. Okay, so because of that, you had to put Jada Pinkett Smith in an old suit, right? They had to CGI her old or however they did it. Actually, it's probably practical effects. When you could have just said, oh, this is 20 years after the original Matrix. You could have had Jada Pinkett Smith with no prosthetics or CGI enhancements, and it would have made sense. So, I guess long story short here from the Omega Level Nerds, ladies and gentlemen, you're hearing The Matrix Resurrection is a misstep, unfortunately. Better than JD, though, better than number 3. I will put this better than number 3, but not much better.
Well,
All right.
I'm gonna check it out because
Yeah.
I'm curious and I haven't had time to watch it yet. But my expectations were low to start with, so I don't think they can mini lower. So we'll see how I feel about it.
Right. That's the saving grace. You can't get lower than the expectations set forth by the third movie. Right.
Yeah,
That's
so, I
absolutely
mean,
correct.
Can't be worse than that, so I'll check it out at some point.
Yeah, in that respect, it can't go wrong. Other than that, though, as much as I hate Agent Smith now, I do like the fact that he calls him Tom. Like, no Neo, no Mr. Anderson. He calls him Tom.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit weird, but I kind of enjoy it. I understand it's like an underground dig. Like, I'm going to call you Neo, bitch. You're Tom. You're Tom now. All right. All right. So, it's been a big week for us nerds. The Witcher Season 2 happened. JD,
Yes,
I know
did.
you don't follow the Witcher, and hell, I hardly follow it. I've seen both seasons, and I can still be lost. I will tell you, though, funny anecdote. Me and my wife, we were watching the last episode today. I watched it last night, but she fell asleep, so she had to watch it. She just now realized that was the same guy that played Superman. She was like,
Occurred to her.
Is that Superman? I said, yes, honey, that's Henry Cavill.
She just.
That's adorable.
She's like, I thought he looked like him, but I just wasn't sure. I'm like, yes, that's him. That's Henry Cavill. Okay. But nonetheless, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because it is now officially Christmas, and I gotta get Merry Christmas, everyone. I gotta get the kids' packages out of the car. So obviously, JD, you should watch The Witcher because I will tell you, Henry Cavill knows how to fucking wield a sword. The fight scenes in this show are fucking awesome.
He has a whole special. Like,
what's
just
that?
going over it. He has a whole special of just going through Witcher combat and the weapons.
Yeah.
It's insane.
No,
That's
Henry
pretty cool.
Cavill is fucking awesome.
Yeah, he's good in everything. Like, I'm not surprised to hear that. I
Um,
mean, I'll check. I'm sure I'll check it out at some point. It's on
Yeah.
my list of things to watch.
But so let's go
Good
right
books,
to.
too.
I mean, I've left the spoiler icon on there this whole because this is a full spoiler edition. So at the end of season 2, we've got Yennefer, Geralt, who Henry Cavill plays, Geralt, and Ciri or Cirilla. They're all together But it's just revealed that Nilfgaard, which if you watch the first episode of the whole series, the first thing you see is Nilfgaard goes to this kingdom called Sentra and just fucking wipe it out. And it's all, then they do that to get Ciri. Because Ciri basically has this ultimate fucking power. I don't know how else to describe it.
Elder blood.
Elder blood, right. It turns out that the king of Nilfgaard is her father.
Yeah, ain't that some shit?
Who was supposed to be dead. And Geralt asks a very good question right before that is revealed. Why the fuck does we just now discovered why the fuck Ciri is so important. How the fuck did Nilfgaard know this already? Well, as it turns out, because the White Flame, the Emperor of Nilfgaard, is her father, who we thought was dead. It was apparently it was a hedgehog at one point.
Which, funny, is the reason Ciri is basically the adoptive child of Geralt, is because he saved her father and basically their marriage.
The law of surprise.
So that starts to get some conflict there. Like, technically, Ciri is Geralt's property, but Daddy, the king, wants Princess back because of her powers.
Because she can control the monoliths that are basically the conduit between whatever the fuck planet they're on and what other planet has these other monsters and shit to come through.
You can also, you'll see eventually she can teleport to different universes too.
Okay, didn't know that because I have yet to experience much of The Witcher other than this.
The third game you find out. She actually lands in the cyberpunk world and comes back and was like, I've seen a completely different universe with all bright lights, flying cars. Like, it's really crazy shit like that. She's powerful as hell.
Well, the series is just crazy as fuck. I got no way to describe it. It's a crazy fucking series. I remember watching the first episode thinking, oh my god, the horror, oh, they're killing Sintra, what are they doing? But then as you go along the series, you think, oh, that queen of Sintra's a dick. Fuck her. Yeah. I'm glad she's dead. She tries to screw Geralt on so many levels, and he's like, I'm just trying to fucking help you, and you're trying to kill me. What the fuck? Boy, is Henry Cavill a good fucking actor.
Accurate.
So yeah, for those of you out there that have seen The Witcher Season 2, good stuff. I'm going to start playing the video games because I'm officially interested in this world.
Yeah, and then when you're done, I have the whole book series I'm getting through. So
I know I gotta get through. I have a fucking book in here, man, and I gotta start fucking writing it. That's all it comes
there you
down
go.
To.
There you go.
I got. And well, here's the thing. My wife is my biggest critic. She'll be the first person to tell me that's stupid or that's interesting. I told her my book idea, and she's like, "That is interesting." And I'm like, "Oh shit, I might have some here." But anyway, so I didn't know a whole lot about The Witcher. The Witcher Season 1, I honestly had to watch it twice before I fucking understood it. Before I understood, okay, these episodes happen during this timeline. These episodes happen this timeline. But the second season is all one timeline, very much easier to swallow. And
they
we're
took
in
that
it full
from the
time.
book because the first two books are short stories, which each episode was a short story. So that's why they did that, to follow how. I am not even going to. Basically Andrew it's a Polish version of Andrew, how he did the first two books. But because that got so much flack, they took book 2 and basically streamlined the season so that way it didn't do that.
And that works because I got to tell you, one of my greatest character flaws is that I need continuity. Like, I love comic
You don't like the
books.
Tarantino effect every other episode?
I don't. I struggle with it. And I know that's a character flaw within myself, particularly as a comic book fan, because, again, comic books do not fucking follow their own continuity sometimes. But you really gotta, I have to condition myself to just enjoy the story. Read this story, enjoy it, move along. So The Witcher season 3 is also greenlit, though, right? And we also have that
As well as
prequel
the prequel.
series as a prequel
And there was
series.
a anime of a prequel for Vesemir that came out last month too. It was from the Castlevania illustrators.
Yeah. Great series if you haven't seen that, by the way, Castlevania.
Animators, not illustrators.
Yeah. But yeah, I really did enjoy The Witcher season 2. So you are the Witcher person here on the podcast, though. You've read the books, played the games. You're all about it. Big dick energy. What did you think about?
Well, still reading the books. There's quite a few of them, but I have played the games. I loved it. You know, one difference between like me and you, D, and I'm not sure JD how big you are, but I'm not huge into fantasy.
5'9".
Right.
Like Lord of the Rings, stuff like that. I'm not huge into that fantasy type stuff. This gets me interested because this is straight fantasy, magic, witches, mages, elves, like. And
I tell my wife all the time, this is D&D. You've got the Witcher, so he's the fighter / he took a couple levels of magic user or whatever. You got Yennefer, she's the wizard of the group. You've got the bard, this is D&D shit. This is cool as fuck. That's why I love it.
Jaskill's fucking hilarious. I have to. He steals the show every time he's on there. Like the scene with him and Yennefer, I was just like, I want more of this. It's fucking hilarious. The way he's just calling her like crazy ass.
Yeah.
So I've never really been a big fantasy guy, but I'm in the process of reading all the Dark Tower books.
Oh, nice.
And those are pretty high and those are pretty slam in the middle of fantasy, and I really enjoy them a lot. So this might be something I had no interest before, but after this conversation, I'm starting to change my opinion a little bit. I'm interested.
Yeah, I would definitely check it out because I wasn't interested in The Witcher at all. Volsker actually let me borrow Witcher 3, the Wild Hunt video game. And I'll be honest with you, I just got done with Zelda Breath of the Wild, which was an open world game. Do anything, do whatever you want. Huge. And I beat that. And I started playing that game, and I'm just like, oh, I don't have time for another open world. I can't sit here and sink hundreds of hours. So I kind of let it go. I watched the first season of Witcher with my wife. She totally dug it. I can't even tell you why, other than Henry Cavill butt. But whatever, I'll take what I can get. So we started watching it again, knowing that season Witcher 2 is coming out, and it finally started sinking in what was going on, and I love it. And season 2 is much more straightforward than season 1. Because season 1 is really more about like establishing why each of these kings, or not each of them, but most of these kings, they had some sort of interaction with Geralt of Rivia, the Witcher that the series follows. So I didn't get that at first, but once I did the second watch through, it made a whole lot more sense and is awesome.
So I got a controversial statement. I immediately did not want to watch this show because it was based on a video game, and I don't play video games.
Right.
I haven't played a video game in like 20 years.
Sure.
So for me, I was just like, not for me. So I immediately just didn't even put any thought into it. But after what I'm hearing now and hearing there's some books involved, I'm like, maybe this is something that I could check out.
Well, if it helps any, JD, the series is based off of the books. The games are actually the sequel to the books.
Oh, really? So the books came before the game. See, I didn't even know that.
Yep. Yeah,
okay.
They were just translated early 2000s, and he's been writing them since the 90s.
Oh, all right. Okay, I'm in. I didn't realize that. I'm gonna finish up Dark Tower and I'll jump in. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely check out those books for sure because it's an interesting universe. It is.
It sounds
Um,
cool.
it is. Yeah, it truly is. So
I mean, even just thinking like what a Witcher is, throw this out there for you, JD. What he is basically he's human, but he's mutated to be able to slay monsters. So he's a monster slayer for hire. So he can do a little bit of magic, but he can take mutagens that gives him powers in the middle of battles. And then
yeah,
yeah, like it's just crazy shit like that.
because
Okay.
like something happens, and again, I'm not the lore master here, but something happens where like we have an Earth type sphere. They call them spheres in this world, and this thing called the convergence happens. And all of a sudden, these monsters come into this sphere. And to combat these monsters, they create these Witcher characters through this elixir. And so they do their thing, but they still exist, 100 years after this whole convergence things happen. And so they just kind of go around killing monsters for coin. And it's interesting.
Assassins
Um,
for hire who kill monsters. That's a man after
yeah.
my own heart. I'm in. I'm sold.
Yeah, I love it because like in the show you'll see where like they encounter this monster. There's like this whole big party of people that are searching for this dragon and they find this monster. And Geralt, the Witcher, is like, listen, you give us some food, it'll go away. And some stupid knight like kills it. Oh no, and we never eat, we never waste a meal, and it starts eating it and he dies because it's poison. But it's funny to see this Witcher who is specifically bred for killing monsters, but they're like the most sensible ones in the whole universe. Like no, you don't need to kill it. It's fine. Like, I definitely suggest you check it out, JD. Again, it took me a second viewing of the first season to kind of understand what the fuck was going on. But once you understand what's going on, it's an interesting universe. So I definitely suggest you check it out.
That was cool.
Bolsker then, scale from 1 to 10, Caesar Witchin' 2, what are you giving it?
9.
9? Okay. I know we were like kind of a little disappointed that Vesemir was not actually Henry Cavill. I know there were some rumors that they may cast Vesemir as Mark Hamill. That didn't happen, so that's a little disappointing. But yeah, overall, I felt it was very, very, very good. All right, well, here we are in the wee hours of Christmas. Want to wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas. Happy holidays if you don't celebrate Christmas, which absolutely. Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever it is. Please, everyone, enjoy this time. Most importantly, Happy New Year. 2021 was difficult. 2020 was difficult. So I bring you a message of hope for 2021 that we finally learn the lesson that we really all should learn, ladies and gentlemen, and that is we are a symbiotic race. Do you understand what I'm talking about? We rely on one each other, each and every one of us. What good and bad happens to me is good and bad that'll happen to you. Love one another, help one another, and we can accomplish great things. Before we go, JD, sir, top selling offer on Amazon. What do you got for us? Anything you have to recommend or plug for us before we say good night?
I was gonna as far as I wasn't prepared for this. I'm gonna
Yes.
recommend first of all, go buy my stuff on Amazon. There's about to be a post Christmas sale. So if you like, I write horror and supernatural thriller stuff. The day after Christmas, my first book, Harvest Moon, will be free on Kindle for a week, and the
Oh,
first 3 books, Books of Jericho, will be $1 a piece. So I'm jumping in and getting all those people who get their new Kindles and iPads and all
yes,
those
yes, yes,
things.
yes.
trying to win them over. And then I got a bunch of stuff planned for 2022 that I'm sure I'll bother you guys about later. But if I'm recommending something, I'm going to recommend you read Stephen King's Dark Tower trilogy, because I think based on where this last conversation finished, if you're into The Witcher, I think you'd like that. So I'll recommend The Dark Tower.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely check that out. And yeah, JD shit, I mean, make no mistake, is cool as fuck. I'm not even a horror guy. And I gotta say, particularly, I like the Jericho character. I love that guy.
Me too.
And so yeah, go check out JD shit. You will not be disappointed. Volsker, what about you, man? Recommendations or plugs before we find ourselves into the new year of 2022?
I mean, nothing really to plug, but recommendations, pretty much everything we've talked about today. Like, if you're a Spider-Man fan, make sure you're going to go out and you support Disney and Marvel and Sony. No Way Home, one of the absolute best, if not the best, Marvel film out to date. Witcher, if you've seen or played and you haven't checked out season 2, do it. If you haven't done anything, highly recommend checking out the books. The video games, if you have a decent PC, you can get them for cheap as hell at this point if you want to play the games. But
I just did.
yeah, there you go. Outside of that, just everybody just have a wonderful Merry Christmas and New Year, and stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I recommend that you check out Spider-Man No Way From Home. Despite my lukewarm response there on
You're not living
Twitter.
that down, JD.
Oh, I'm gonna I'm gonna listen to it forever.
Well, I listen. That was by design because let's face it, it's a great comic book movie. To see all those different villains, it's just good shit, man. Make sure you go ahead and see that. Matrix 4, stay away from. But The Witcher Season 2 is great. Make sure you check that out for sure. And just everyone, again, please, despite whatever your religious beliefs are, please take this as a time to help your brother or sister. Please take this time to reflect on just how symbiotic of a race of humans. When I say race, okay, it's got nothing to do with color, ethnicity. We are one. We are brother and sisters. And we can create so much happiness together and working with one another. So please, I beg of you, turn off the media, experience the actual human that make up your neighbors, and we can just make this such a wonderful place and help one another. And that's what I truly care for in this holiday season. So please, enjoy each other, enjoy the many different variations that we bring to each other's lives, and cherish those that are different than you, and those lives that may walk a different path than what you walk, because we all make up this wonderful, wonderful thing that we call life. Okay? Peace and love, guys. It's all we need. Together we can do a lot of wonderful, wonderful things. And I think in today's media, we lose that. So forget the media. Just pay attention to your brother and sister and help them. And we're going to do a lot of wonderful stuff. Very, very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all of you out there. Peace and love. And we'll talk to you again soon here on the Omega Level Nerds.